Dennis Rodman, aka The Worm, is one of the most legendary NBA players of all time, not only for the way he dominated the boards and helped win championships, but also for the way he stood out. And along with his fame and success came money, lots of money. When Rodman first signed on with the Chicago Bulls back in 1995-96, he had a salary of $2.5 million. That figure shot up to $9 million during the 1996-97 season. By the time Dennis left the NBA in 2000, his total earnings were about $27 million. But despite his fame and success, Dennis has had a tough time holding on to that money. Just take a look at his teammates Michael Jordan and Scotty Pippen and you'll see that something went wrong for him. Whereas MJ is now worth an incredible $2.1 billion and Scotty between $30 to $50 million, Dennis now has an estimated net worth of just $500,000. In fact, back in 2012, Dennis faced jail time because he couldn't pay the over $800,000 that he owed in child and spousal support to his third wife. What happened? Well, we know he loves to gamble and we know he loves to party, but is that really how he spent all of his money? With Dennis, nothing is ever quite as it seems. So let's take a look at what it takes to spend your money like the worm. Let's start with the parties. Now, Dennis has a reputation for hosting 24/7 parties. He calls Las Vegas his, quote, therapy, and even the demanding task of playing alongside Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen didn't stop him from letting loose. In fact, he famously took a trip to Vegas in the middle of his 97-98 season. Pippen had missed much of that season due to injury, and Dennis was left working harder than ever to make up for his absence. So, when Pippen came back, Dennis asked for 48 hours to go off to Las Vegas. He spent his time partying with Baywatch star Carmen Electra and was gone much longer than the 48 hours agreed. He actually only returned when Jordan and others went to Vegas to bring him back.
Way to go get his ass out of bed.
And then there was Club 4809. That's the name Rodman gave to his house in Newport Beach, California. While playing for the Lakers back in 1999, he used the house as his home base, but converted the downstairs into a club, complete with a full bar. As Dennis describes it in his memoir, it was basically a non-stop party when he wasn't playing. Women, sex and rock and roll. And on that note, his post-NBA lifestyle has been much the same. As one reporter who visited him in 2012 described, Rodman's weekly routine consisted of day-long binges followed by days of sleeping with trips to Starbucks and the gym sprinkled in between. All of this partying came at a cost, and I don't just mean physically. Dennis has racked up thousands of dollars in city fees due to noise violations and other disturbances, not to mention a DUI which cost him $2,000. But it wasn't just the house parties that cost Dennis. His Newport restaurant, Josh Slocum's, was also a constant source of complaints from neighbours until it was finally shut down in 2005. Rodman had put $500,000 into the business, and after closing its doors, he owed another $80,000 in unpaid rent and other fees. Unfortunately, he ignored those fees for a decade until in 2014, a court finally ordered him to pay up what he owed. By then, after 10 years of interest, the original $80,000 had ballooned to $200,000. But the fines don't seem to bother Rodman too much. In fact, he should be pretty used to them by now. While playing in the NBA, he once had to pay a $50,000 fine after making derogatory comments about Mormons. That was the largest fine in NBA history at that time, but it was far from the only one that Rodman was given. In another game, the league fined him $25,000 for kicking a cameraman. They also suspended him for 11 games without pay, which, given his $9 million a year salary at that time, may have cost him as much as $1 million. Now, I mentioned his trip to Vegas while playing for the Bulls. Well, while playing for the Lakers, he took another vacation. He apparently couldn't take all the drama between teammates Shaq and Kobe, so asked to go to Las Vegas to cool off. According to Dennis, Lakers owner Jerry Buss gave him $200,000 to spend, but Dennis lost about $50,000 in the first 2 minutes. And according to sources who knew him well at the time, Dennis had no problem laying down large sums of money. One weekend he won $89,000, the next weekend he went back and lost $200,000. Now, what's unclear is how much of a loss all of that money really was to Dennis. You see, he didn't treat money the way you might. In the early 90s, when he was playing for the Pistons, he reportedly took a trip to Vegas with the intention of losing every penny he went with. That meant $35,000 over the course of a few days. Afterwards he said, quote, "I hate money. I went to Las Vegas to lose, so I could feel normal." But Rodman doesn't just throw his money away, he also gives it away. In fact, according to many of the organisations that have worked with him, he's a pretty generous guy. For example, after that 11-game suspension that he received for kicking a cameraman, he pledged to give away his salary for the next 11 games to various charities, totalling an additional $576,829. Just some of the charities he gave to included the James Jordan Boys and Girls Foundation, the Rainbow Coalition, and the Jewish United Fund. Those donations were all in addition to his earlier charitable contributions that he'd made earlier on that year, which also consisted of hundreds of thousands of dollars. And his generosity also extended to the homeless. For example, in an interview in 1990, he described how he'd hand out $50 and $100 bills to homeless people in downtown Detroit. As the story goes, one night after having dinner with some of his teammates in Chicago, a homeless woman asked Rodman for some money. She had 2 kids and was pregnant. Without hesitating, he gave her $250. He later said, quote, "If I had had $1,000, I would have given her that too. There are a lot of people out there that are more worthy of this money." Now, do you remember Dennis's Hall of Fame speech? In that speech, he had a special thank you for a woman named Peggy King. Peggy was his financial advisor and essentially held the keys to his bank accounts. And she was very well connected in the world of sports and used her connections to manage the finances of several well-known athletes, including Ricky Williams, Rashad McCants, and of course Dennis Rodman. As Rashad put it, quote, "Peggy was sexy, she was attractive, she was seductive, she knew how to play on a man's heartstrings." Just a year after the Hall of Fame speech in which Dennis thanked Peggy for her help, it became clear that something wasn't right. At the time, Dennis was still making over $1 million a year from speaking appearances, signings, and overseas basketball games. And yet, his electricity got shut off in his Florida condo, payments on his life insurance policy lapsed, and oh yeah, remember the $800,000 he owed for child support? Well, when Dennis was brought into court for failing to pay, something came up that surprised him. A large purchase had been made in his name at Victoria's Secret, but as Dennis later told a friend, he'd never even been to Victoria's Secret. All told, Peggy swindled Dennis out of about $1.2 million and was served with a 10-year prison sentence. For Dennis, that betrayal must have been quite a blow. So, what with his anything goes lifestyle, his fines, and a crooked financial advisor, Rodman's $27 million didn't take long to disappear. But that won't stop Rodman from being who he is. Now he has a bigger mission. In 2013, he flew to the Vatican to try and help Peter Turkson of Ghana in his attempts to become the first black pope. He's also famously travelled to North Korea 3 times to talk with the infamous dictator Kim Jong-un. His hopes are that he can help to connect our two cultures through basketball. In his own words, quote, "I want to be anywhere in the world I'm needed. I want to spread a message of peace and love throughout the world." Maybe to spend your money like Rodman, you'd have to be like him. And we all know there's only one Dennis Rodman. Hey, if you got a kick out of hearing about how Dennis lives, you might want to check out how the rest of the super rich live through the eyes of their butlers. I'll leave that video on screen for you to check out now. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you on the next video.